calling those Kentucky Oaks, as he has every year since 1999, is Churchill track announcer Luke Kruytbosch, who is only the 5th announcer in the history of the track. He got the job when he was just 36 years old, but as he'll tell you himself, he paid his dues.
Hey, you're off and running.
Luke Kruytbosch, the baritone voice of Churchill Downs since 1999, has taken the road less traveled to Louisville, calling anything that runs at more than 30 tracks.
I did pay my dues. I grounded out at a lot of smaller places. You can, go to your G. Raleigh White Downs, Will Rogers Downs, and the Arizona Fair Circuit, kind of work your way up. I remember when I was calling the races in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I had some great times when I was at Hollywood Park, and I called the All-American Futurity at Ruidoso Downs for 6 years.
The man who's reached the pinnacle high atop the Twin Spires actually got into the business on a lark.
I was at a little track called Holbrook, Arizona. A friend of mine was running a horse for his dad, and they needed a track announcer, and I had done imitations of sports announcers before. Hello again, everybody. Great stakes action at Santa Anita. Chris Lincoln. So I did it, a little nervous and shaky, didn't know what I was doing exactly, but I had paid attention to announcers enough that I got up there and got through it all right, and they had invited me back. Of course, it was for free. It was for Cokes and hot dogs instead of an actual paycheck.
As a child, Kruytbosch unknowingly was preparing. He idolized the legendary announcers that brought sports to life, and the kid from Northern California did everything just to catch a listen.
I'd be under the covers, listening with my little transistor radio, and I could get Ernie Harwell in Detroit. I could get KMOX in St. Louis and listen to Jack Buck. I could listen to the New York announcers. I could listen to guys like Johnny Most doing the Celtics up there, so that was a big influence, whether I knew it or not at the time.
Unlike other sports announcers, a race caller must handle as many as a dozen races a day with more than 100 horses. To keep it all straight, Kruytbosch employs a colorful pre-race routine.
I'll color in the horse's silks on my program and over the horse's name with whatever color that happens to be. They'll come on the track and I'll memorize the field by my naked eye, but I may get a phone call, may do an interview, what have you. The horses are back there behind the pony. I can go ahead and I can re-memorize that horse off the program without having to actually physically see the horse.
So, what happens when the feature race on the first Saturday in May hits the track and the pressure's on?
The last thing I always do, right before the last horse loads, I look back out to the toe board to make sure it's the right race.
He usually gets it right.
Well, that's impressive. The only thing I can relate to that is calling the Indianapolis 500, but that's the same drivers week after week. He has to remember new silks every other race.
Yeah, you got an easy job compared to this. What would you say? I mean, you've been all around the country, you've been all the tracks. How does he compare to the other track callers?
He is a good race caller, and it is a very difficult job, but it's not just remembering. You got to forget. You do 10 one race, and then 30 minutes later, you got to forget those 10, and you got to memorize the next 10.
Yeah, that's impressive.